What is the CIA triad? Three principles of security, control, and management, also known as the information security triad, also referred to in reverse order as the AIC triad. Confidentiality. The fundamental security goal of keeping information and communications private and protecting them from unauthorized access. Integrity. The fundamental security goal of keeping organizational information accurate, free of errors, and without unauthorized modifications. Availability. The fundamental security goal of ensuring that computer systems operate continuously and that authorized persons can access data that they need. Non-repudiation. The security goal of ensuring that the party that sent a transmission or created data remains associated with that data and cannot deny sending or creating that data. National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, develops computer security standards used by U.S. federal agencies and publishes cybersecurity best practice guides and research. Cybersecurity frameworks. Standards, best practices, and guidelines for effective security risk management. Some frameworks are general in nature, while others are specific to industry or technology types. Security controls. A technology or procedure put in place to mitigate vulnerabilities and risk and to ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. Gap analysis. An analysis that measures the difference between the current and desired states in order to help assess the scope of work included in a project. Identity and access management. A security process that provides identification, authentication, and authorization mechanisms for users, computers, and other entities to work with organizational assets like networks, operating systems, and applications. Identification. The process by which a user account and its credentials is issued to the correct person, sometimes referred to as enrollment. Authentication. A method of validating a particular entity's or individual's unique credentials. Authorization. The process of determining what rights and privileges a particular entity has. Authorization. The process of determining what rights and privileges a particular entity has. Accounting. Tracking authorized usage of a resource or use of rights by a subject and alerting when unauthorized use is detected or attempted. Authentication, authorization, and accounting, AAA. A security concept where a centralized platform verifies subject identification, ensures the subject is assigned relevant permissions, and then logs these actions to create an audit trail. Security control. A technology or procedure put in place to mitigate vulnerabilities and risk and to ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. Managerial. The control gives oversight of the information system. Examples could include risk identification or a tool allowing the evaluation and selection of other security controls. Operational. A category of security control that is implemented by people. Technical. The control is implemented as a system, hardware, software, or firmware. For example, firewalls, antivirus software, and operating system access control modules or technical controls. Physical. Controls such as alarms, gateways, locks, lighting, security cameras, and security guards that deter and detect access to premises and hardware are often placed in a separate category to technical controls. Preventive. A type of security control that acts before an incident to eliminate or reduce the likelihood that an attack can succeed. Access Control List, ACL. The collection of access control entries, ACEs, that determines which subjects, user accounts, host IP addresses, and so on are allowed or denied access to the object and the privileges given. Read only, read, write, and so on. Detective. A type of security control that acts during an incident to identify or record that it is happening. Corrective. A type of security control that acts after an incident to eliminate or minimize its impact. Directive. A type of control that enforces a rule of behavior through a policy or contract. Deterrent. A type of security control that discourages intrusion attempts. Compensating. A security measure that takes on risk mitigation when a primary control fails or cannot completely meet expectations. Chief Information Officer, CIO. A company officer with the primary responsibility for management of information technology assets and procedures. Chief Technology Officer. A company officer with the primary role of making effective use of new and emerging computing platforms and innovations. Chief Security Officer. Typically the job title of the person with overall responsibility for information assurance and system security. Information System Security Officer. Organizational role with technical responsibilities for implementation of security policies, frameworks, and controls. Security Operations Center. The location where security professionals monitor and protect critical information, assets in an organization. Development and Operations, DevOps. A combination of software development and systems operations and refers to the practice of integrating one discipline with the other. DevSecOps. A combination of software development, security operations, and systems operations and refers to the practice of integrating each discipline with the others. Computer Incident Response Team, CIRT. Team with responsibility for incident response. The CIRT must have expertise across a number of business domains, i.e. IT, HR, legal, and marketing, for instance. Vulnerability. A weakness that could be triggered accidentally or exploited intentionally to cause a security breach. Threat. A potential for an entity to exploit a vulnerability, that is, to breach security. Intentional. A threat actor with a malicious purpose. Unintentional. A threat actor that causes a vulnerability or exposes an attack vector without malicious intent. Risk. Likelihood and impact of a threat actor exercising a vulnerability. Internal, external. The degree of access that a threat actor possesses before initiating an attack. An external threat actor has no standing privileges, while an internal actor has been granted some access permissions. Threat actor. A person or entity responsible for an event that has been identified as a security incident or as a risk. Level of sophistication and capability. Refers to a threat actor's ability to use advanced exploit techniques and tools. Resources, funding. The ability of threat actors to draw upon funding to acquire personal tools and to develop novel attack types. Service disruption. A type of attack that compromises the availability of an asset or business process. You see it? Data exfiltration. The process by which an attacker takes data that is stored inside of a private network and moves it to an external network. Disinformation. A type of attack that falsifies an information resource that is normally trusted by others. Blackmail. Demanding payment to prevent the release of information. Extortion. Demanding payment to prevent or halt some type of attack. Fraud. Falsifying records, such as an internal fraud that involves tampering with accounts. Hacker. Often used to refer to someone who breaks into computer systems or spreads viruses. Ethical hackers prefer to think of themselves as experts on and explorers of computer security systems. Unauthorized. A hacker operating with malicious intent. Authorized. A hacker engaged in authorized penetration testing or other security consultancy. Unskilled attacker. An inexperienced, unskilled attacker that typically uses tools or scripts created by others. Hacktivist. A threat actor that is motivated by a social issue or political cause. Nation-state actors. A type of threat actor that is supported by the resources of its host country's military and security services. Organized crime. A type of threat actor that uses hacking and computer fraud for commercial gain. Internal threat. A type of threat actor who is assigned privileges on a system that cause an intentional or unintentional incident. Unintentional or inadvertent insider threat. A threat actor that causes a vulnerability or exposes an attack vector without malicious intent. Shadow IT. Computer hardware, software, or services used on a private network without authorization from the system owner. Threat vector. The path that a threat actor uses to execute a data exfiltration, service disruption, or disinformation attack. Sophisticated threat actors will make use of multiple vectors. They are likely to plan a multi-stage campaign rather than a single smash and grab type of raid. Highly capable threat actors will be able to develop novel vectors. This means that the threat actor's knowledge of your organization's attack surface may be better than your own. Vulnerable software. Weakness that could be triggered accidentally or exploited intentionally to cause a security breach. Unsupported systems. Product lifecycle phase where mainstream vendor support is no longer available. Unsupported system. Unsecured network. Configuration that exposes a large attack surface, such as through unnecessary open service ports, weak or no authentication, use of default credentials, or lack of secure communications/encryption. Unsecured network. Lure. An attack type that would entice a victim into using or opening a removable device, document, image, or program that conceals malware. A lure. Supply chain. The end-to-end process of supplying, manufacturing, distributing, and finally releasing goods and services to a customer. Supply chain. Social engineering. Using persuasion, manipulation, or intimidation to make the victim violate a security policy. The goal of social engineering might be to gain access to an account, gain access to physical premises, or gather information. Social engineering. Impersonation. Social engineering attack where an attacker pretends to be someone they are not. Impersonation. Pretexting. Social engineering tactic where a team will communicate, whether directly or indirectly, a lie or half-truth in order to get someone to believe a falsehood. That's pretexting. Phishing. A type of email-based social engineering attack in which the attacker sends email from a supposedly reputable source, such as a bank, to try to elicit private information from the victim. Phishing. Vishing. A human-based attack where the attacker extracts information while speaking over the phone or leveraging IP-based voice messaging services. Vishing. Smishing. A form of phishing that uses SMS text messages to trick a victim into revealing information. Smishing. Farming. An impersonation attack in which a request for a website, typically an e-commerce site, is redirected to a similar looking but fake website. Farming. Typo squatting. An attack in which an attacker registers a domain name with a common misspelling of an existing domain so that a user will misspell a URL they enter into a browser is taken to the attacker's website. Typo squatting. Business email compromise. An impersonation attack in which the attacker gains control of an employee's account and uses it to convince other employees to perform fraudulent actions. Business email compromise. Watering hole attack. An attack in which an attacker targets specific groups or organizations, discovers which websites they frequent, and injects malicious code into those sites. Watering hole attack. Cryptography. The science of practice of altering data to make it unintelligible to unauthorized parties. Cryptography. Plain text. Unencrypted data that is meant to be encrypted before it is transmitted, or the result of decryption of encrypted data. Plain text. Ciphertext. Data that has been enciphered and cannot be read without the cipher key. Ciphertext. Algorithm. Operations that transform a plain text into a ciphertext with cryptographic properties, also called a cipher. There are symmetric, asymmetric, and hash cipher types. Cryptanalysis. The science, art, and practice of breaking codes and ciphers. Cryptanalysis. Encryption. Scrambling the characters used in a message so that the message can be seen but not understood or modified unless it can be deciphered. Encryption provides for a secure means of transmitting data and authenticating users. It is also used to store data securely. Encryption uses different types of cipher and one or more keys. The size of the key is one factor in determining the strength of the encryption product. Encryption. Key. In cryptography, a specific piece of information that is used in conjunction with an algorithm to perform encryption and decryption. Key. Symmetric encryption. Two-way encryption scheme in which encryption and decryption are both performed by the same key, also known as shared key encryption. Symmetric encryption. Key length. Size of a cryptographic key in bytes. Longer keys generally offer better security, but key lengths for different ciphers are not directly comparable. Key length. Asymmetric algorithm. Cipher that uses public and private keys. The keys are mathematically linked using either rival, Shamir, or Alderman, or implicit curve cryptography algorithms, but the key is not derivable from the public one. An asymmetric key cannot reverse the operation it performs, so the public key cannot decrypt what it has encrypted, for example. Asymmetric algorithm. Public. During asymmetric encryption, this key is freely distributed and is used to encrypt data, which can only be decrypted by the linked private key in the pair. Public. Private keys. In asymmetric encryption, the private key is known only to the holder and is linked to, but not derivable from, a public key distributed to those with whom the holder wants to communicate securely. A private key can be used to encrypt data that can be decrypted by the linked public key or vice versa. Private keys. Hashing. A function that converts an arbitrary linked string input to a fixed linked string output. A cryptographic hash function does this in a way that reduces the chance of collisions where two different inputs produce the same output. Hashing. Secure hash algorithm. A cryptographic hashing algorithm created to address possible weaknesses in MDA. The current version is SHA-2. Secure hash algorithm. Message digest algorithm number 5. A cryptographic hash function producing a 128-bit output. Message digest algorithm 5, MD5. Cryptographic primitive. A complete cryptographic system or product is likely to use multiple cryptographic primitives within a cipher suite. The properties of different symmetric, asymmetric hash types and the specific ciphers for each type impose limitations on their use in different contexts and for different purposes. Cryptographic primitive. Digital signature. A message digest encrypted using the sender's private key that is appended to a message to authenticate the sender and prove message integrity. Digital signature. Public key infrastructure, PKI. A framework of certificate authorities, digital certificates, software, services, and other cryptographic components deployed for the purpose of validating subject entities. Identities. Public key infrastructure, PKI. Certificate authority, CA. A server that guarantees subject identities by issuing signed digital certificate wrappers for their public keys. Certificate authority, CA. Third-party CAs. And PKI, a public CA that issues certificates for multiple domains and is widely trusted as a root trust by operating systems and browsers. Third-party CAs. Digital certificate. Identification and authentication information presented in X.509 format and issued by a certificate authority, CA, as a guarantee that a key pair is valid for a particular subject. Digital certificate. Public key cryptography standards, PKCS. A set of standards to promote the use of public key infrastructure. Public key cryptography standards, PKCS. Root certificate. A PKI, a CA that issues certificates to intermediate CAs in a hierarchical structure. Root certificate. Certificate chaining. A method of validating a certificate by tracing each CA that signs the certificate up through the hierarchy to the root CA, also referred to as chain of trust. Certificate chaining.